What if everything you thought and believed about successful buying, selling, and financing your home was wrong? Welcome to HomeWise with Michael Midget. This is where you can count on straightforward, objective advice on the right way to make the most out of every dollar you put into your home. Whether it's buying, selling, or financing, even maintaining and growing its value along the way. Coming to you from the NewsTalkSTL studios at Union Station in St. Louis.
Welcome to HomeWise. I'm Stal Ponticus, and I'm joined by the creator and host of the show, Michael Midget. Michael, great to see you, buddy.
Hey, Stal, how are you doing?
Doing fine, thank you. I'm ready to jump in, man. You got all this insider knowledge. I'm ready to go.
All right. Well, got a lot to, as always, I have more to cover than we probably have time for.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, we've been really trying to dive into the heart of what the primary problem is in the market today, all right, which is affordability. And there are lots of different ways to tackle that, right? So it seems like every week I'm coming out, here's this problem, affordability, here's what we're going to do to tackle it. And then each week there's like another way to tackle it. And I'm like, well, which is it? Which is it that way? Or is it the one you talked about last week or the one 2 weeks ago? If you want to catch up on them all, you can find them on the website, Facebook page, HomeWiseRadio.com, all those places. We're everywhere. It's not one versus the other, right? You could use them all together, right? So I've talked about the idea of stacking before, stacking the solutions, right? Some of them stack, some don't, but using them in tandem, particularly when it comes to savings, when you're stacking different ones on top of each other, you start to multiply their benefits. And so today, what we're going to do is we're going to go back and I've talked about it a little bit in the past, but we really haven't dove into it very deep. But it's something that doesn't get a lot of press because there aren't a lot of solutions for it. All right. So it's the culmination of the power of a group, right? So a group of people together and what power they can have, a little bit of insider knowledge and a connection to put it all together. Use that applied to the affordability problem in the marketplace. That's what we've got today. All right. So it's a story of collaboration. Okay. And in real estate, in mortgage, in a lot of things in life, there's power in collaboration, all right? Like-minded people working together to get a common goal, right? It's another form of crowdsourcing, when you get a lot of ideas together. They say the crowd can come up with a better idea than any one single person because of just the pure volume of the ideas there. Like you're more likely to hit on the main one. You just have more, it's really more brain power, right? So it's a bringing together of human brain power. But you don't truly access all of that until you get it in the form of group, right? So it happens a lot in business, right? We see it a lot in the business setting. A company, that's essentially what a company or a corporation is. It's a group of people who have come together. Right now, they've come together because they're getting paid, okay? But they come together, and they're there for a common purpose to achieve a common goal. And in the case of a business or other business like for-profit enterprises or activities, it's to get paid, all right? But you also see it in other forms too, like charities, not-for-profits, associations. You don't see it a lot outside of, the not-for-profits and the charities, the associations, where it affects the consumer or the consumer is brought in directly. All right. And in mortgage and real estate, we do have programs that are targeted to certain groups of people. They tend to be programs that center around need-based type of stuff. So if you have a below average income, there's a program available to you. It's good. It serves a portion of the market. It encourages home ownership. It's good for those people. It's good for the system as a whole, as long as it's done responsibly. But and most of the time it is. All right. Very seldom is it not. You also see it for like first-time home buyers, right? So people that don't have the benefit of having invested into home ownership at some point in the past, usually because of age, right? But some people because of their circumstances, they need help getting over that initial hurdle of saving for that down payment. So they have reduced down payment programs for that. You also see a version of it with the program Homes for Heroes. All right. Now, that's not a lending or a loan program. That's a cost buying or benefit, right? So it's not special loan program, but special discount on, and discount's probably not the right word for it, but I'll just call it that because it's a reduction in what the closing or the settlement costs are.
Is that the one that's geared towards veterans?
That's the one that's geared toward veterans and other, I call it the hero class, right? So it's veterans fall in there, but so do police, firefighters, teachers, first responders, EMT, that kind of class of profession. Okay. Now, when you say veterans fall into that category. They also fall into another category, which there's a special loan program for them. So they're a truly special group. But just so that we don't get confused there, these are all great programs. They're set up to help people. They're good for the system as a whole. But what happens if you don't fit the mold that they're built for, right? So not to take anything away from those, but there is, especially today, right, given what affordability is and all that, there is a class or group of people, it's rather large, that could use or need help to get into that buying mode, get into the market, whether they're first-time home buyers and they just don't fit the typical first-time home buyer mold, or if they are second, third time around, and they just, circumstances or whatever where they need to get help today. And a lot of average, everyday, ordinary people fall into that today because of the reduced affordability, because of rates, because of home prices, because of wage lag compared to inflation and all those things. So
it's like you've got a list of hurdles that you need to somehow deal with to get over.
It really is. And some of those hurdles are qualification based, like inside the process. There's a whole nother set of hurdles that you overcome mentally just deciding, do I want to buy? Do I want to get in the market? Do we want to move? Do we even want to take up brain space to try and tackle this problem, And but there's a lot of people out there, and I sit around and I think about, I get the idea with helping the classes and the special things, the profession-based stuff, but what if you don't fall into any of those, right? What do you do? Well, that is the question we're going to tackle today. And I have an idea that will help people right now, especially if you're looking to buy or sell a house. So last week we talked about mistakes. All right. So there's a mistake I left off the list. I knew I was leaving off the list. I was going to save it for this week.
But by mistake, you left it.
By mistake, I left it off the list. See, we're all susceptible to mistakes. Not shopping for your settlement charges. Okay. So remember earlier I referenced Home for Heroes. Great program if you fit into the mold for that. But did you even know that you could shop for your settlement charges on your own, even if you're not in a special class? So this isn't like class, no class, like if you're a part of a class, you can do this, but if you're not, you can't, or vice versa. This is just simply knowing something. I will refer to it as insider knowledge because I don't think that it is well known. It certainly doesn't happen on a regular basis. I question whether or not it even happens at all because of the structure of the industry, especially surrounding settlement service providers. The way their businesses are set up, where they get their business from, they're really not even set up for consumers to shop. So even if I said, hey, you know what, that's the idea today. Okay, we're done. Go off and do it. I'm not even sure you could do it on your own because, well, what are they? You know, who is it? Who's in those categories? What should you pay? Right. So these are all questions that you would need in order to effectively be able to shop for something like that. So it's not a huge stretch to industry insider, lots of years of experience, knowing a lot of people, also knowing what it takes to really move the needle on a deal. And we're looking for all the ways that we can look at something. So in this case, a mortgage financing deal. Financing is probably the largest contributor to what the cost of that home is going to be over time than any other single factor, right? And so we are attacking the inputs or the elements that go to directly affect the cost of what that financing is over time. The biggest piece of that is that we have control over is interest rate. Well, we don't have control over interest rate, but we do kind of, because even though we can't control the market, we can control where we fall in the market, right? So translate that into ground speak here, and we're talking about buy downs again. God, we keep talking about buy downs. Why is that? Well, they're popular. They're popular for a reason. Interest rates drive mortgage sales, right? Well, rates are high today. Well, they're higher. They're not high historically, but they're higher than what we're used to. They're high if your attention to this area is less than 10 years old. That's a long time. You know, I mean, I have to go all the way back to, I would guess, probably the year 2000. So what are we in 2023? Now, I have to go back that far to think of a loan that I closed that had interest rates. There was upwards of 10 at the time, right? I know we're not to 10 yet, but it wasn't too long ago we were on a trajectory where I was thinking like, okay, we're almost there. One more piece of bad news, one more like, what is gonna, that whole feeling thing we've kind of been exploring a little bit too. By the way, that's still there. It hasn't gone anywhere. We can't dwell on it because we can't control it. All right. But what we can control in this case is what we're paying to get through the process. And we can make it matter. We can make it make sense. So what you're going to see is that before those classes, the special programs are loan programs, right? And then there was the Home for Heroes and other types of things like that focus on the costs. But the things that focus on the cost don't incorporate the loan, and the things that incorporate or the loan programs don't incorporate the costs. So there's an extra leg there that you could do, which is if you can take those two things and put them together, right? So that is what we're doing, right? So settlement charges. What are settlement charges? They're the money charges for the services that pertain to the settlement of the loan, right? So things like appraisal fees, title fees, recording fees, getting your insurance in line, inspections, things like that. All the ancillary services that are directly related to either the loan process or the purchase process by itself, right? Termite inspection, that's another one. Maybe if your lender charges a loan processing fee. We don't, but some do. The underwriting or the admin fee. If you choose to pay discount points, you'll see those on there. They'll be part of your settlement charges. There's a document called the loan estimate that outlines all of that out. And if you look at, and I think the easiest way to understand them and really digest them, and what I do when I get somebody in and we're going about this, is I just take the form out, I show them the form, and I talk in terms of what that form looks like. So this section, that section, left side, right side, this is what this term means, this is what that term means, and by doing it that way, it helps to make sense of everything. So basically, if you look at the loan estimate, it's got two sides, a left-hand side and a right-hand side. And generally speaking, the closing costs are going to be on the left-hand side. The prepaids are on the right-hand side. The difference between those two things are generally the closing costs. I like to say those are the things that are related to the loan. Those are the things that, if you're financing, that generally mostly have to do with the loan. The prepaid expenses are the things that have to do with the buying of the property that you really can't escape, right? So even if you're walking in and you're paying cash for a property, you're still going to have to pay real estate taxes, okay? If you should buy homeowners insurance, although I don't think there's a law that says you have to, but you should. You're not going to escape that charge by paying cash and not paying for a loan. But if you take a loan out, in addition to those charges, you would incur an appraisal fee, right? Or you would incur title charges related to the lending process and things like that. So some of that is attributable to the loan. And where it really starts to get confusing is the fact that, one, they fall in different sections, and depending on what section they fall in sort of determines, or they're in those sections because you can shop for them, or you can't shop for them, or you did shop for them. You could, but you did. You could, but you didn't. And, and there's all different categorizations for that. It's confusing, number one, even to me. First time I looked at it and read through it and was trying to learn it. I mean, it took me a few times, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's the practice getting used to looking at it and thinking of it that way. And that took a little bit of time also. It's not rocket science, but doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And basically, I think that due to that, a lot of that explanation goes by the wayside, and it never makes it to the consumer. So they don't know, like, one section versus another section. I know it's labeled this. I can read, of course, Mike, but it's pre-printed on the form. It just looks like a rubber. It's like forms. We sign them all the time, but do we ever really read them? Even pre-printed like everything looks pre-printed today because it's all printed out. And actually, you're not even seeing a printed out form. It's on a computer screen, and you're digitally signing it, more than likely. Mm-hmm. So it gets confusing. So we're going to dive into that. As always, you can find us, HomeWiseRadio.com, my mortgage website, GoShelter.com. If you have questions on this, 314-275-0314, call or text. I can get them answered for you.
Good. We'll take a quick break here and continue the discussion right here on HomeWise with Michael Midget. I'm Stal Ponticus, and we will return in just a moment. Welcome back to HomeWise. I'm Stal Ponticus, and Michael Midget is here in the studio with me, and we are really exploring this subject here with home purchasing and home buying. And Michael, take it away, buddy.
All right. So today we're talked a lot about rates, affordability, loan programs, things about the loan. We're tackling another aspect of something that plays into what the home is going to cost you over time, and that's the settlement charges, the direct settlement charges that you're going to pay in connection with the closing of the loan. It's part of your cash to close figure if you're in process or have recently done that. And remember what all that is like. It's that number you're waiting for, like, how much do I bring, right? It's just like when it's all said and done, Just tell me how much the check needs to be and who to make it out to, kind of stuff, right? So this is part of that figure. And I think it gets glossed over a lot. People don't realize that you can shop for settlement services, right? Because I don't think it ever gets brought up that way. And we're gonna dig into that here. We were in the middle of talking about the loan estimate. And I realize, as I'm thinking back now, as you're listening to this, you probably don't have a loan estimate in front of you, right? But so for the people that do, I'll refer to sections loosely and that. But if you don't, this doesn't mean you're not going to be able to follow along. It just means you won't be looking at a form or have something to reference right now that reflects what, what we're talking about. But it's generally all going to be the same thing. And, let's just simplify it. Okay. There's settlement services you can shop for, and there's those that you really can't. Right. They come in two sections. They're both on the left-hand side of the loan estimate. It's Section B and Section C. Section B, generally, that's the one where the appraisal's at. All right. So if you got a buddy in the appraisal business, you're buying a house, guess what? I know you'd love to send your buddy the appraisal. I'd probably like you to send your buddy the appraisal too. Can't pick your buddy for the appraisal, right? In fact, even if we went through the proper process to get an appraisal chosen, it would extremely unlikely that it would happen, but there might even be an issue if your buddy was chosen, so I don't exactly know what would happen with that because it's never happened to me. Okay. I've never heard of it happening to anybody, but the point is it used to be, if you knew somebody, you could have them do it. And see, so me being in the business and I'm, working through this, I know a lot of appraisers. Appraisers would court me to use them for their deals. And so over the years, we would get to know them. And, people like to do business with people they know. There's a comfort factor there. It removes uncertainty at the vendor level, right? Well, that process has now been gutted and replaced with something, we'll just call it appraiser independence regulations, AIR, used to be called HVCC. Make a long story short, you don't get to pick the appraiser anymore. I can't pick the appraiser anymore. The lender can't pick the appraiser anymore. There's a new entity or a vendor that you pay for indirectly as a part of the appraisal fee called an AMC or an appraisal management company.
They're the ones that make the choice on the appraisal?
They are the ones that make the choice. So they are supposed to be an independent, non-biased, uninterested third party, even though there are AMCs that are owned by lenders. But point is that the person who is making the system or the process or whatever that is making the choice of who is going to be the one that this file gets assigned to and goes out like at the company level. So XYZ appraisal, people, Inc., the company, right? Versus, ABC appraisal company, Inc., right? Two different companies. Okay, last time we picked ABC, this time we're going to go with XYZ because we have so many in this particular area that will take appraisals from this particular geography, and we have them on a round robin.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but does that feel awkward to you? Because you've got so many folks whom you probably trust to do appraisals, folks that do a really good job. You would love to choose one of them, and you don't have that opportunity to pick one of them.
That is correct. It causes...
That's got to be frustrating.
It is. Well, at first it was frustrating because it was new, right? But then you get used to the process. Okay. Now that doesn't mean that it feels much better, but you kind of get out of that. I wish it wasn't this way because it's going to be this way. It's not going to change. So we just have to deal with it. Right. So we have to make a plan to deal with it, except there's really no way to make a plan to deal with it because the rules and regs are as such that it's about as airtight can be if you're going to play above board, right? And there's no way to get the appraiser to that guy anymore. So
I'm just feeling a little bit of the frustration.
It is. Well,
on your end.
If you hear it in my voice, I'm kind of living through this.
Yeah.
So like the last, I had a closing yesterday. All right. And so I go, I have a process I use where I choose the lender and how I work everything out. And every lender's process is a little bit different on this, but eventually at some point there comes down to the order is going to be farmed out to the appraisal management company. And then the appraisal management company is going to assign it to an appraiser. And there is a system, a software program, right, that kind of plugs in this information. So I'm looking at this board waiting for the different milestones and go, okay, so order process, order paid for, order, we're actively looking for an appraiser to take this. Okay, we've got it out to this many. Oh, somebody accepted it. Okay, now they've got, and you can see all these different milestones getting hit, but it's like I'm just watching this. Meanwhile, I'm supposed to be driving the ship, right? So it's almost like, to use a bus analogy, it's like you're the bus driver, but you're sitting in the co-pilot seat and you're just, for this part of the process, you have to sit and watch. It's a critical part of the process, right? So yeah, all the appraisers are licensed, right? They're all legitimate appraisers. They're supposed to be anyway. But, just 30, gosh darn, I'm probably near 32 years now. 32 years worth of having appraisals done. I can't say I've never come across bad ones, and it happens sometimes. And I'm responsible for that process. So, it's how do we deal with that? We don't. We have to, we have to let it happen. So,
not to get you off track, but what happens if you have a problem with the appraisal? Can you go to a second?
Yeah, there is a process for that where you dispute the appraisal back through this same system, right? So at no point can I ever really address or communicate directly with the appraiser. So they are completely, I'll say 100% insulated from me, right? So if they do a bad job, I don't get to go up to that person.
Question them.
I can't question them directly, right? I have to question them via a form and my evidence that I will now submit into a process to put in front of somebody who has, not only do they not have an incentive to change it, because, like that, presumably they did the best job that they could. And now I didn't like the job that they did. They're supposed to be unbiased. I'm clearly biased, even though whether I am or whether I'm not, I am an interested party to the transaction. By definition, I'm getting paid to do a job. And by nature of the definitions of everything in place, on a technical, like legal level, I'm considered an interested party. That automatically creates bias for me. So I'm automatically at a
disadvantage. I don't know if that's the right word.
Clearly a disadvantage. I was thinking of a stronger word, but we'll just go with disadvantage.
Okay.
I was thinking penalty, but it's really not like a penalty, but you feel like you're being penalized for that. Ultimately, if it's a bad appraisal or whatever, it would be the borrower getting penalized. And we always fight for our borrowers. So yeah, that's a process. Like we never want to get into there, because unless you have, pretty much the only way to get those to win anything on a dispute like that is if you can find a material mistake in the appraisal, such as he's got it down as 3 bedrooms and there's 4 bedrooms. Hey, somehow you missed a bedroom, right? It doesn't happen much. More likely, though, square footage. Maybe they took some liberties and they just used the square footage that was in the real estate tax records, but the real estate tax records don't accurately reflect the house because fill in the blank with whatever reason why that is the case. But there's actually an extra 150 square feet on the house, right? And so, 30, 40 bucks, 50 bucks a square foot, depending on the house where it's at and what those are, that might give you another $5,000 or $10,000 worth of like technical hardcore value there, right? Those I have won before, but the ones where, hey, I just think you picked crappy comps, it's a judgment. It's subjective. And they have no incentive to change their mind. And in fact, I think it probably looks bad if they do change their mind because it means that they didn't do their job the first time around. So it's pretty much a material mistake, or if you had new comps come online between the date between the date of the appraisal and now the date of the dispute, right? And I have had that happen before. That has saved deals before. But these are like, that doesn't happen very often, especially on a purchase. That this process is there to protect borrowers ultimately, right? So it's overall, in a grand scheme of things, it's a good thing, all right? So I don't want to position it as bad, but it does create uncertainty. Just like you said, it does make it uncomfortable for me because it's essentially the one part of the process I can't control, and I don't have as much insight into as I would like going in, right? So I can look at all the comps myself. I've got, automated valuation models, multiple of those that I can run. I'll talk to the real estate agent ahead of, what are we, we're looking, how does this stack up? Because presumably they're doing some research ahead of time to know what a good offer would be, right? Comparable
homes in that area.
I can't say that always happens because I've been involved in deals where, how did you arrive at the offer? Well, it's what the house was listed at. It's what it was going to take to buy it. Well, is it going to appraise out? I have no idea. I didn't even bother to look. Well, they didn't say that, but I could tell that. Not all the time, not most real estate agents, but some. It has happened before. But the good ones, the strong ones, the ones that are experienced and know what they're doing and truly have their client's best interests at heart will do some of that work ahead of time. And, and so they know. And so one of the things that I'll ask is, how are we looking here? Is appraisal potentially an issue? Because if it is, I want to start working on that contingency in case that happens ahead of time, so that I'm able to act at the drop of a dime when that comes back, because usually that's one of the last things that comes back. It comes back. There's not often, a lot of time between the time that comes in and the time we're closing, just because of the way timelines work. And then, the length of time it takes, it can take a week to get an appraisal back. So depending on what that closing timeline is, it might be pretty close. If there's an issue with it, if I have to go back, if I have to ask questions, if I have to formulate a dispute, if I have to do all of this, that will basically double the length of time that it takes to get resolution for it. There just isn't time for that. There's not time also to add in there, hey, and let's figure out what we're going to do. We need to know right now, okay. And I would look at it and I would say okay, if we are within X percent or X dollar amount of this, it doesn't materially affect the end result to the borrower. I just have to move some numbers around, redisclose some things, and I can put this back together and still essentially deliver them the same deal. In cases where that's not possible or it falls beyond that threshold, then I need to know that too, because it might, it can kill a deal. It can up to and kill a deal. So it might not have an effect. It might have a small effect. We might have to do some reworking, depending on what the borrower's resources are. They might need to put more money in, or that might be an option. For others, it might not be an option. So, But then in some cases, it may kill the deal. It may kill the deal because of lack of resources and now no longer qualified and causes issues with that. Or it might just be, hey, the appraiser uncovered a defect or something else with the property beyond its value, or sometimes it's just, hey, this thing isn't worth nearly, what we thought it was, and going to walk, or it can be used as a bargaining tool we agreed on this, but the contract had an appraisal rider on it. So we want to bring the sale price down to what the appraisal was. And, if that's a small change, that probably happens fairly often in that situation. If it's a large change and the seller doesn't want to, which today that's probably most of the time if it's too large of a reduction, or they can meet in the middle, or whatever. But it becomes a negotiating, tool.
Okay.
And, but appraisals fall in that section of can't shop for them, right? So it's the fees what the fee is. You don't get to pick them, and it's sort of in that it's in that middle ground there, along with some other, technical lending fees like the tax certification and the tax service and the flood certification, right? And, we could go into what those are, but they're on every loan. They have to be that delivered when they go to Fannie Mae. They're small. Usually together they're less than $100. It shouldn't be more than $100. But those are also, we'll see those fees in the section. If they're there, you'll see them in that second section that you can't shop for. The one we're going to focus on is the section that you can shop for, plus the other section. So let's go to break.
Yes.
And we come back, we will dig into those.
Give your contact information again real quick.
Sure. HomeWiseRadio.com, mortgage websites, GoShelter.com, and direct questions. You can phone me at 314-275-0314, call or text.
This is HomeWise with Michael Midget. I'm Stel Ponticus. We will return in just a moment after this quick break. Welcome back to HomeWise. I'm Stel Ponticus with Michael Midget. And Michael, we're going into the home stretch here, so continue the conversation.
All right. Thanks, Stel. So we just got off a dissertation level exploration of the appraisal process and how it plays into this, and that it falls into the category of settlement services that you cannot shop for. And we just talked about why you can't shop for and what that process is. So if you're interested in that, you can always go back and re-listen to that. Where we want to really dive into today, though, are the settlement charges that you can shop for, that you do have control over, because there's an opportunity there, and it's a rarely exercised opportunity that can make a big difference. All right, so title, yes, you can shop for your title work, okay? You can also shop for some of your other settlement services, too. And just to make it simple, I've lined these off to kind of make a list of what you can shop for and where it would probably benefit you. So it's the title work, the title insurance, the settlement, the closing of the loan, and things that fall in that category, and the home inspections. So like the home inspection itself, if you're getting radon done, getting sewers scoped, and pest inspection like termites, stuff like that. Oftentimes those will be bundled together in one thing, or inspectors will have packages in that, which can kind of complicate your ability to shop for them. Because generally it's not the kind of thing. See, the problem with a lot of this is that they're not sold direct to consumers as the primary mode of buying them. So they don't have consumer-facing systems set up most of the time, right, to allow that type of journey to happen, right? So marketing, we call that a buyer's journey. People don't show up to buy this on their own. The vast majority of what we do, like over 90% of our business, comes from referrals from real estate agents, mortgage lenders, maybe even certain settlement services like the surveys will come from the title companies, because they're often the ones that determine whether or not a survey is needed, right? People think it's the underwriter that wants the survey. No, the underwriter just wants the title insurance. So whatever whatever you got to do to get the title insurance, that's what the lender is going to bank on. And if there's an issue with, a survey is going to give you land boundaries. So part of your house is built on the neighbor's land next door. Now there's a dispute going forward. That's going to fall onto the title insurance company. That's where the lender, or the security for that loan, that's what they're going to look at, right? So it's just, what does a title company need in order to effect that they have clear ownership of the improvements of that property, what the boundaries are, and things like that. So generally, survey companies will get their orders from title companies for residential type work like this, right? So, but you don't see surveys a whole lot, right? They're not done on every deal. They're only done when they need to be, or if somebody wants to be like super on top of it and have super certainty with it. Like if they're going to build a fence,
fences,
or there's a question, right?
Yes.
But if you're buying an existing house, there's already a fence there. It's probably like you're not going to move the fence, or it's you just. Usually if you're going to put one up. So, and then the other category, and it actually turns out to be a big one. I think it's the biggest one of all. We've talked about it before. It's the homeowner's insurance. Whoa, I didn't think of that as a settlement charge. Well, it's not really a closing cost. It's a prepaid expense. It's not associated with the loan, because remember I said you need it anyway, but it's when you're going to buy the house and you're looking at how much money you have to bring to closing, and I know what the down payment was going to be, and the difference between that or these closing costs. Oh my gosh, I'm paying all these closing costs. What is that? Like, why are you charging me so much? Well, it's not me charging you so much. It's a portion of that number is set up the escrow account so it's real estate taxes. It's, these other things. In addition to all of that, it's a year's worth of homeowners insurance up front, right? So whatever that premium is getting added in on top of that. So if you can, whatever you can save off of that, it's not a direct savings to the loan, but it will. I'm going to turn that into direct savings on a loan here in a minute, right? And you'll see why this can really be a powerful idea. So, but the place we're going to focus on for right now, because there's a thing here is title. I'm going to do a whole nother show on this. There's a reason why we're going to dive in deeper on it, but we're getting ready to offer something here, and it's going to be a game changer. So people don't shop for title. Why don't people shop for title? Well, because when they make an offer, the title company gets put onto the buyer's contract. Okay, doesn't mean that you have to use that title company, but the system's not set up to shop for title. And there's a whole host of other reasons why that might be difficult to shop for net, but nobody ever comes along like they do. Hey, you know what? You need to find yourself homeowners insurance. You need to, you're going to need to get an inspection done. Some agents will handle that for the people. Others will give them an option. Pick one of this guy, here's who I refer to, or if you know a guy or whatever. By the way, if you know a guy, you can use a guy, right? There's no rule on the inspections like there is appraisals. So if you know a guy, if you know a title company, you can do that. If you know an inspector guy, you can do that. If you know a homeowner's insurance person, you should definitely do that, right? Just don't be afraid to shop around, because you may not be getting the best deal, and you might not even know it. Okay. Take my case, for instance. That was one of the first shows that I did. It kind of established that even if you're in the industry and you know what you're doing, you're still susceptible to that. hey, I didn't realize it because I wasn't looking and thinking, focused on it. You know, I was looking somewhere else. You know, I wasn't focused on it. So anyway, yeah, you can shop for title. All right. Even if you sign the form that says where you're closing, you know, there's no verbiage on there that says you've made your decision. This is just, you know, if you wanted to shift midway through or whatever. I've seen it happen before. Not often, but I've seen it happen. When you get your loan estimate, that title insurance is probably going to fall in this section that says that you shopped for it. So legally you shopped for it, whether you did or whether you didn't, right? Because I made you available to shop for. It was available to shop for. You just didn't. Why didn't you? You probably didn't know you needed to, right? But even if you need, so again, now I've told you, here, go out into the world and get yourself some title insurance. Well, good luck with that, you know. Well, who? You know, title companies aren't a household name for the most part. You know, try to find their number. Well, where do I call? Who do I call? What do I say when I call? Call them up, tell them who you are, and say you want to buy title insurance, and you're probably gonna get crickets. Like, do you know the extension of the person, you know, or what do you want, or who do you work for, or something like that, because they're set up to get their business from referrals. They're not designed, their systems aren't designed to intake like that, right? So you're going to catch them off guard, and it's, you know, I don't know.
A cold call.
It's definitely a cold call. It's a cold conversation. It's just, it's not a terrible, I mean, I'm not saying that you can't do it. What I'm saying is,
it's not the normal procedure.
It's not like, you know, like if you call a mortgage company, right? So if you call me and you call my line, say, hey, Mike, I heard you on the radio, or my friend over here referred me to you, or I talked to, you know, XYZ real estate agent. They said to call you to get pre-approved. See, I have a system for that, right? Okay, you know, hey, how you doing? You know, we talk. You know, it's not a complicated system. It's not digital. It's, you know, we're two people talking, right? We can handle that. I know what to do. I know what to say. I know what I'm looking for when that comes up. So, the title company's not set up for, and most of these other settlement service providers are not set up for that incoming phone call like that. Heavens, go to their website and fill out send them an email or fill out the message thing, right? I mean, I've tried to set doctor's appointments, right? So like, yeah, we're expecting to intake like consumers directly. You can't even get a response back from that. Go to a business who's not expecting that to come in and put a message in on you know, so it's not set up. There is no quiz funnel on their website. It says, hey, click here if you want to buy title insurance, right? It probably ought to be a thing, but it's not. At least as of the recording of this show, it's not. So we'll see what happens. But does it matter, right? Some people believe it doesn't matter. Title insurance is set by, you know, the cost of insurance is set by the Department of Insurance. Some states it is, some states it isn't. But it's sort of like it's like a commodity, right? For the title insurance, yeah, it is. But there are other services that, at least here locally, that title companies typically provide that are beyond the insurance, right? So there's like, we're going to sit down and go through your paperwork and close your loan with you. We're going to take the wire from the lender and the down payment money from you and the other people that are contributing money to this transaction, and we're going to account for all of that, and then we're going to disperse it, pay off loans, pay sellers, pay commissions, and pay, like make sure all the money gets to where it's supposed to go, and basically ensure, it's called insuring, that closing, make sure that it happens right, because it's necessary for loans to get sold into that secondary market. There are other services that they're providing for that, and that is where what are they charging? Well, I guess it's whatever they want to charge. They charge too much, somebody will notice, and they might choose somebody else. But if they're low, You know what I mean? I mean, there's no real regulation that I'm aware of that really governs that the same way that the insurance is. So what happens is if you go out and, make a long story short, I've gone out and I've shopped that. And there happens to be a wide variance. So, $300, $500, very common, right? I don't know if that sounds like a lot of money to you, right? In the context of buying, if you're buying a $400,000 house, what's $300? What's $500? Well, if you take the title and then you take so you can do a similar thing with the inspections. You can do a similar thing with the homeowner's insurance. You can do a similar thing if you choose your lender, correctly, if you use a real estate agent. There are different ways to accumulate funds that could all stack together, right? And so we've been talking about buy downs, right? A buy down is just a way to affect, what the payment you're going to make on a loan is from money that's coming from the seller. All right. Generally speaking, it's coming from the seller because the amount of money it takes to affect that change needs to come. That's like the only place you can go to get enough of that, enough of that money. Nobody really wants to dig into their pocket to do that. All right. But there are ways to look at saving, to look at savings for that. So if you add all that up, and let's just say you were able to come up with $1,000, right? So like the $1,000 difference between what you would have done typically if you didn't know versus, I listened to this show and the guy said, so we were, look, he was right. We saved $1,000 on that. Well, if you take that $1,000, you just, now you got $1,000 in your pocket, right? Okay. On a $400,000 house, is that really, are you going to do that? I don't know, but you could also take that $1,000 and you could use it to buy down the interest rate. And $1,000 on most loans, in my framework, would get you somewhere in the neighborhood of an eighth of a percent better on the interest rate. Now, I know people will shop for an eighth of a better on the interest rate and try and whittle it out of, squeeze an onion and try to get blood out of it, like that whole thing. When there's another way to get some or all of that by doing this other thing that never gets looked at. But eighth of a percent on the interest rate on an average size loan knocks, if you take that lower rate, you get a lower payment. You can take that lower payment, you can plow it back into the loan. And when you do that, that saves you interest. And so not only did you take that money and invest it in the loan to get a better rate that's going to give you, and when I talk buy down for this, I'm talking about permanent buy down because those are the ones I like. And since this is free money anyway, it's the same money. It's money that you would have spent, but instead of, but now because you shopped, you saved, instead of pocketing the savings, you reinvested it back into the loan 2 ways, lower rate and then prepaying the loan. You can turn that $1,000 into as much as $28,000 on an average size loan, like a $300,000 loan.
Sure.
So that's a pretty good multiple.
Yes, indeed.
There's obviously more to that, and we will dig into that in future episodes.
Okay.
So like or follow us online, Facebook, HomeWiseRadio.com. You can find me at GoShelter.com. If you want to call or text me, reach me directly. Direct message on Facebook or phone is 314-275-0314.
And that wraps up this week's edition of the show. Thank you so much for joining us for HomeWise. That's Michael Midget. I'm Stel Ponticus, and we hope you will join us for the next edition of HomeWise.
Take care.
Loans and loan information provided by Shelter Mortgage, Inc. Visit us at GoShelter.com and MLS number 192609. A Missouri residential mortgage licensee and equal housing lender. Call 888-497-2558 for additional cost information. Other restrictions may apply.